And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. As we have recently talked about your car, your data, the website yourcar.yourdata.org, I want you to understand that your vehicle produces data with vital repair and maintenance information. Now, that's really great for you, but if your data is stored on a computer inside your car, you can control who accesses it. But here's the catch. Newer cars began wirelessly transmitting data straight to car manufacturers. If car manufacturers control it, they can limit the number of places you can take your car for service. You could be stuck with a more expensive option or have to take your car somewhere that's totally inconvenient for you. They could also share and sell it with third parties without your consent or knowledge. Joining us today to talk about Your Car, Your Data, Your Choice campaign, we have three guests. Bill Hanvey, President and CEO of Autocare Association, Paul McCarthy, President and COO of the Automotive Aftermarket Suppliers Association, and Matt Buchholz, President and General Manager of Motorrad. Gentlemen, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Great to be with you, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby.
Bill, let's start with you. Again, you're President and CEO of the Autocare Association. Share with our Car Clinic listeners and viewers about Your Car, Your Data, Your Choice campaign.
Sure, Bobby, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to your listeners. And I'll ask a question of your listeners. And for those of you that own a newer vehicle, 10 years or less, are you aware that your vehicle transmits that data? Well, and I can answer that question through the research that we've done. Is that nearly more than 3 in 4 people who own a newer vehicle are not aware that their car is transmitting data. And when we say data, we mean all kinds of data. The vehicles contain many sensors that transmit performance data, geolocation data, in other words, where your car is, where it's not, how it's performing, how much you weigh. So when that little light comes on the dashboard, when you put a gallon of milk on the seat, your seat is a scale. And that's transmitted back to the car manufacturer in terms of all this data that, as you mentioned, is being aggregated and sold by the car makers. By 2022, Bobby, 87% of the new vehicles that are manufactured in the U.S. is going to be able to transmit this data wirelessly. So what the Your Car, Your Data campaign is all about, it's an education campaign for your listeners. And the education campaign is centered around choice. And when that data is being transmitted by the vehicle and being controlled by the car makers obviously want to control who repairs and diagnoses the vehicle. So it's trying to limit your listeners' choice in terms of where they get the vehicle repaired. Obviously, they want that to be able to be repaired at their dealerships. 70% of the repairs made, Bobby, are made in the independent repair auto care industry, your local shop on the corner of Elm and Main. So the campaign is geared specifically to educate the consumers that this vehicle or this data transmission is taking place and that their choice of where they want to get their car repaired is under threat.
Thank you, Bill. Folks, we're talking again with Bill and Paul and Matt, and we're talking about specifically Your Car, Your Data, Your Choice campaign. Paul, let's start with you. As President and Chief Operating Officer of the Automotive Aftermarket Suppliers Association, what made you decide to partner with each other in support of this campaign?
It's a good question, Bobby. It's important to the over 4 million American jobs that come from repairing and maintaining vehicles. And it's important because this is about the very future of that industry. But as much as it matters for us in the auto care industry, it matters even more for consumers. So the math's been done. If we allow this to become a monopoly, it'll take over $100 billion out of consumers' pockets, more with monopoly pricing. There's a lot of Americans who can't afford that. When we talk about this to Congress people and senators, they also point out that, hey, I got a lot of constituents who live an hour away, 100 miles away from a dealer. How are they going to get their vehicle repaired? And if that wasn't enough, imagine that you have one option to get your vehicle repaired. You go there, and they don't have an open bay. They say, come back in a week, come back in a month. This is how 85% of Americans get to gainful employment. So the impacts on consumers are huge. Take an example, a single mom. Maybe she has a 12-year-old car. That's average in the U.S. She uses her car to get to work, to drive her kids to practice, to go to church. She can't afford to have those repairs, that maintenance cost a boatload more. She can't afford to not have this vehicle repaired and not be able to get to work. So we need to speak up because the impact on consumers is tremendous.
Thank you very much, Paul. Matt, it's your turn. And again, Matt is president and general manager of Motorrad. And Motorrad is an aftermarket automotive parts supplier. So, Matt, why is this issue important to the independent auto care industry?
Thanks, Bobby, and thanks again for having me. This is really important. I mean, as Paul mentioned, we care about that single mom, and I love hearing stories about people like that, and hearing that our product, our quality product, was able to get that person's car back on the road so they can go about their lives. And Motorrad has concerns, and we about making sure that mom continues to have the choice of where she wants to get the car repaired. Many different locations, not just a single location or at the dealer that, as Paul said, could be 100 miles away. And so we just want people to have that choice. And a large part of our business, as you know, and your listeners know, is supplying parts to independent repair shops around the country. And as Bill said, 70% of the repairs are done at those independent repair shops, and that's where our parts are supplied. And that's where consumers, in most cases or many cases, choose to take their car. So we just want people to have the choice, and that's important to Motorrad, so that we can keep consumers and keep the cars on the road.
That makes a lot of sense. And Matt, I'd like to inject here that I know for a fact that when I purchase a Motorrad product that fits a specific automobile, let's say a Lexus or any car, you name it, the part that I purchase from my local independent aftermarket supplier matches and meets and or exceeds the manufacturer's specification, and in most cases, the Motorrad product is an update to the original thermostat that was installed in that car, let's say 50 or 100,000 miles ago. So not only is it wise to keep this aftermarket industry alive, but it's also wise and prudent for us to make sure that car owners of America know that it's their choice, and we want to retain that. So, again, I appreciate you gentlemen taking the time to share the information about your car, your choice today, and your data. Again, we have with us Bill Hanvey, President and CEO of the Auto Care Association, and Paul McCarthy, President of the Automotive Aftermarket Suppliers, and Matt Buchholz, President and General Manager of Motorrad, who is in the trenches every day. Let's shift gears. Paul, are you exploring legislation as a solution to this problem?
Well, we have to. So soon, with a number of partners, we're going to introduce legislation in Congress that will address this issue, that will give consumers access to their own data, and then, if they choose, allow them to share a part of that with repair professionals so their vehicles can get repaired. I'd also note that our friends at Auto Care are making significant progress on legislation in Massachusetts on this issue as well. But I won't kid you, Bobby, this is tough. Getting anything passed in the U.S. these days is very tough. And there is a lot at stake, as you just described. So we're fighting hard, but what will make a difference is when the millions in our industry speak up, when the tens of millions, the hundreds of millions of American vehicle owners speak up and have their voice heard. That's what's going to get legislation passed.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. As I mentioned before, we're talking with three gentlemen in the aftermarket, and really we're talking more about and sharing information about your automobile and the fact that in 2022, 87% of the cars on the road in America will be transmitting data, your data, to the manufacturer. So we need to understand that, and also you need to take part in that. And Bill, with the automotive auto care industry getting involved, how are you supporting and your associates this initiative?
Thanks, Bobby. And, when we talk about the auto care industry, we're talking about your listeners. And the listeners that are dialed in today are people that like to fix their cars and maybe not even like to fix their cars, but may have to be able to repair their own vehicles. So it's critical for your listeners to be engaged in this fight. And it's not just an industry fight, but it's a consumer fight for their right to be able to fix their own vehicles or to take their vehicle to the repair shop that they choose. And there's several ways that they can get involved and support their cause, really. They can visit yourcar.yourdata.org and sign a petition that demands Congress to give vehicle owners access to and control of their vehicle data. The petition has already been signed by nearly 20,000 people, and this is the type of information that legislators listen to. They listen to people that vote in their district and people that own repair facilities or that like to repair their own vehicles. They should let their Congress people know that their right to be able to do that is in jeopardy.
I just want to comment that I'm 100% on board, and I can't think of any car owner that would not like to have and retain the control of his or her information as it's being recorded in their automobile. But please continue.
And, to our point, all we're asking for, and, we talked about other data that's being transmitted by the vehicle, such as personal data, geolocation data, weight, so on and so forth. But what we're focused on is simply the repair data that's necessary for either the consumer or for the shop to be able to fix their own vehicles. And, again, you can visit us at yourcar.yourdata.org, sign that petition. It lets the legislators know that you're interested, that you're engaged, and this is a fight that we all need to engage in.
No doubt. Just a couple of more questions. And gentlemen, again, thank you so much for joining us today on Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Let's go to Paul. The issue of vehicle data privacy appears to be a new issue, but is it new? Can you talk about the issue that is impending, and is that already affecting today's market?
Well, it's a very good question, Bobby. And the answer is it is absolutely affecting us already. We cannot afford to wait to address this issue. So one of our members did an analysis, and it showed that there's already 100 million vehicles on the road today in the U.S. that has some kind of repair constraint. Now, at this point, it may be just something small or some of the new technology that's out there, but the number of those vehicles, the breadth of those things we can't repair anymore is increasing and increasing fast. And let me just give you an example from a recent newspaper article. They were talking to Rick Ramstrom of Ramstrom Service Center, and he pointed out that he's already paying over $20,000 a year to automakers to get access to the information he needed for repair and maintenance activities. And that number is increasing every year. And even with that spend, he can only do about 70 to 80% of the repairs that come in due to some sort of data or information constraint. So this is happening now. It's growing. And we can't wait and wake up 5 years from now and have a vehicle that, because it can only get repaired in one place, is worth a heck of a lot less than we thought it was. So the time for action is now.
Agreed. Bill, just another question of you, if you don't mind. Knowing the issue is already impacting today's market, as Paul just mentioned, how could it affect the industry in the near future?
Well, thanks again, Bobby. And I think Paul really touched on it quite well in terms of, the technology that is invested on by the shops to be able to do this. They need to keep up. An independent technician today, they are akin to an electrical engineer in terms of trying to diagnose some of these vehicles, and they need access to that data. And if they don't have access to that data, again, you're going to be forced to go to the car dealer for that. And this is not just an issue that's related to the automotive industry. Interestingly enough, on the agricultural side, we're beginning to see the same type of thing with tractors and new farm machinery that is being required, that those types of machineries go back to the dealerships. Well, if you've got a combine down in the field and you have to wait for your dealership for a week to get back to you, that's going to ruin your crops. The same type of thing, to draw it back to Paul's analogy. If you have to wait a week to get your vehicle repaired, you're going to miss work. You're going to miss obligations that you have as a family. So this is very real. It's taking place right now. And, if we don't get this done, it's only going to exponentially get worse.
Well, thank you so much. And gentlemen, I certainly appreciate it. And I know that our Car Clinic listeners and viewers appreciate the time and the sharing of the information. And folks, the website is yourcar.yourdata.org. The campaign is to move forward so that you can retain that information that's being collected on your car. And again, I want to thank Bill, the president and CEO of the Auto Care Association, and Paul McCarthy, who is the president and COO of the Automotive Aftermarket Suppliers Association. And last but certainly not least, Matt, I didn't have a lot of questions of you. I have so many more, but we'll just have to get you maybe back individually on the program. But Matt Buchholz from Motorrad, gentlemen, thank you so much for this information, and thank you for sharing not only what's pertinent today, but over the next couple of years and going forward in the future. Folks, you heard it right here on Bobby Likis Car Clinic. And Bill and Paul and Matt, I thank you, gentlemen, so much for the information and for sharing your busy schedules with all of our Car Clinic listeners today.
Thank you, Bobby. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Bobby.
Appreciate the opportunity.